Hi, this is Susan Galinsky.
And I'm Denise Grace, and we're the founders of G Squared. So for the best information and tips on how you can have a successful retirement, subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell so you'll be notified anytime we upload a new video. So do you know the top 5 key risks that can financially spoil your retirement plan? Well, by the end of this video, you'll know not only what they are, but we'll give you some ideas on how you can mitigate those risks so you can have your successful retirement.
Now, the first risk is a hot topic, and it's one we can all relate to, and that is the word inflation. And we're all feeling the pain right now, whether it's at the grocery store, the gas station, restaurants. The retail environment's feeling it. I mean, it is just very prevalent, and we're at historically high rates right now for inflation. Now, what's interesting about this is that the United States economic situation is actually worse than it was during the Great Depression. And people say, well, how could that be, right? And there was a 40-year recovery period. It went from 1940 to 1981. And that's when inflation and tax rates were historically high. So you had tax rates at 40% and above, and you had home mortgages at an average of 15%. So now you say, well, how could we be worse off than that, right? Well, think about COVID-19. 2020, Congress passed the CARES Act, and this is a government-funded recovery act. And what happens with the recovery that is funded by the government? Well, that debt has to be paid off. And who pays that debt? You and I. And how do we do that? In the form of higher taxes. However, what's really changed is the amount of debt that the United States carries. So let's take a look at this slide. And you can see here that in the current month of January 2023, we are over or at and going to be over 31 trillion, right? So how does that compare to back in 1940 or 1980? Well, in 1940, the amount of debt that the U.S. was carrying was 43 billion. Boy, doesn't that sound like, a good deal compared to today? And in the 1980s, we were at 998 billion. So almost a trillion back in 1981. So how does an economy recover from this? Well, again, it's going to be in the form of higher taxes. And that's you and I. And what that means is that when you you go into retirement and you have to start taking things like your required minimum distributions, unfortunately, it's probably going to be at a higher tax rate. So let's talk about then inflation, what the actual risk is. Denise?
So inflation risk, we need to strategically position our money to keep up with or hopefully beat inflation, which means money in the market in most cases.
Right.
But by the same hand, when you have to start taking money out when you're retired and the market goes down, you're forced basically to sell money or sell off at a loss. We call that negative return risk. And it's a reality for a lot of people now. It was a reality for people that retired back in 2008 when the market crashed. So it's something kind of a lose-lose situation unless you plan ahead and put things in place where you can help mitigate that risk.
Yes. So the second risk is taxes. Are you going to have to pay more in taxes? And what we discover is that there's a lot of people out there who have a large pool of money, and it's called qualified money. It's sitting in qualified accounts. And what they fail to remember is that they have a partner with this qualified money. That's the IRS. And that partner can raise the percentage of their take anytime they may feel like it. So this is another risk that we as retirees need to look at and have some strategies of how we can lower that tax bill.
Right. And then we have longevity risk.
Right.
as we all know, people are living longer and longer, and that's something else that you need to plan for in retirement. Retirees' number one fear is their money not lasting as long as they do.
So their fear is that they're going to outlive their money, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. The fourth risk is survivorship. Now, in our world, women typically live longer than men do. And in the event that there is a married couple, one of the spouses dies unexpectedly, now that remaining spouse is going to see a loss of income, whether it be that they lost either her or his Social Security, so now you only have one. If they're fortunate enough to have a pension, then now the widow or widower is only going to get 50 or 75% of that pension. And then the other thing that a lot of people don't recognize is that the taxes for that surviving spouse are actually going to go up, because before you were married filing joint, and now you're filing single, and the tax rates are higher for single than they are for married joint.
They often call that the widow tax, right?
Yes.
Which leads us into market risk.
That's the fifth
And,
one.
right. And we all take an element of risk when we put our money in the market. But again, being strategic about that, knowing your risk tolerance is real critical to helping you make your money last, like I said, as long as you do. Because if the market drops and you lose a significant amount of money, then, unless you have other buckets to withdraw from, you're going to be taking money out at a loss. And that when you're not working any longer, you're not contributing any longer, that can be devastating to a retirement plan.
Yeah. So what are the solutions to these 5 risks that we've talked about? Well, let's talk about inflation. How do we minimize that inflation risk?
Well, one of the things that we like to do, that Susan and I do for our retirement plans, is put a portion of our money into a fixed indexed annuity. It has a lot of features, but one of the features is helping you combat or stave off inflation. If you make money because you're benchmarked to the market without being in the market, and we have a positive year, you'll keep up with, or in some cases, beat inflation. So it sets you at a level of security there without having to worry about losing principal. And there are some other advantages to it as well.
So the next solution to tax risk is tax-deferred annuities. So I want you to think about this. If you have a 1099 or you have money sitting in a money market, every year you're going to get that 1099. If you put it into a tax-deferred vehicle, then for the duration of that annuity, you're earning interest on interest, and you're delaying that tax. So that's one way to address the tax risk. Now let's go to the next one, which is longevity.
Longevity risk. Again, we can address longevity risk and a lot of risk associated with it with a fixed indexed annuity that has a guaranteed lifetime income. It guarantees that you, and if there's a spouse, will get a paycheck year after year after year for as long as you live. It's kind of like, you have your Social Security, that check's going to come in every month. If you're lucky enough to have a pension, that check's going to come in for you every month. If you set up an annuity correctly, you will also receive a check for you, for your spouse, for as long as you both shall live.
And that's the beauty of a fixed indexed annuity. So to address the survivorship risk, again, we're going to talk about the annuity, because that's going to continue to pay regardless if you do lose your spouse. Now, another great vehicle is the life insurance policy. And a lot of people will set up that life insurance policy for when that spouse, if and when that spouse may die suddenly, then the remaining spouse has that tax-free life insurance policy to subsidize their income.
Right.
Now, the one caveat there is that you want to put a life insurance policy in place while you're still eligible. Because a lot of people think about it too late and major health issues come up, and now we cannot write that policy. So something very important to think about, planning, okay? So let's talk about the fifth risk, which is market.
The market risk. And, we talked about having money in the market goes down, you need to take withdrawals at a very inappropriate, inconvenient time. Again, with the fixed indexed annuity, your principal is protected. You will never lose money. There are some types of annuities that are just for accumulation. It gives you a safe bucket by having, and we believe in, different kinds of buckets serve different functions.
Right.
But if you have a source that you can go to when you need to take money out to live off of and the market's down, you don't have to sell off at a loss. That money's there for you, whether it's an accumulation annuity, whether it's an indexed annuity where you're going to get those paychecks month after month. You will never lose your principal. You will never lose any money that you earn on it.
Right.
Which really gives people a big sense of security. It's what helps us sleep at night.
We call it the swan effect, sleep well at night. So I think what has really been driven home with this video today is the importance of planning and creating those options, and besides just having the money in the market.
Right. It's like the different buckets. You need that safety and security. And you also need money in the market to hedge inflation in the long term.
Right. So I hope that you enjoyed this video today. And of course, we invite you to spend a couple minutes with us. Our calendar link is on the bottom of this, and you can just simply click on there and see when our availability is. Schedule a 15-minute strategy session with us. Let's talk about your personal situation and how we can help you minimize these risks. So if you like the video, please give us a like, tell your family and friends about us, and remember that it's important to G Squared that you know that we believe that it's important to build relationships
Beyond investing. Thank you.